Most gods in fiction influence their worlds. One of Brandon Sanderson's gods literally built hers. She took a planet, shoved it into an impossible orbit between two suns, and created a permanent day side and night side. Then she created avatars of herself, started a religion based on sun worship, and pitted her own people against each other just to see who was strong enough to survive. Hi guys, my name is Jason Hamilton. I write fantasy that combines multiple world mythologies, and I'm endlessly inspired by intricate world building like Sanderson's. Today we're exploring the fascinating and brutal logic of the shard autonomy by examining her masterpiece of control, the planet Taldain. Taldain's setup is just bonkers. The planet is tidally locked in a Lagrange point, a precarious spot of gravitational balance smack between two suns. On one side, you have Azda, a massive blue-white supergiant bathing one hemisphere in endless scorching light. On the other side is a dim white dwarf called the Eye of Ridos, shrouded in a dust cloud that filters out most visible light, leaving the other hemisphere in perpetual darkness. Now, this isn't a natural phenomenon. Physics say this orbit should be wildly unstable. The planet is held in this Wombear saddle orbit by the sheer will of the shard autonomy. She literally built this system, a perfect laboratory to breed conflict and test her creations. Even the planet's single moon, Nishta, is bizarre. It has a polar orbit tracing the twilight line that separates day from night, its path actively manipulated by autonomy to maintain this perfect unnatural balance. This cosmic engineering created two entirely separate worlds on one planet. The border between them is the terminal storm, a permanent raging tempest that makes crossing from one side to the other a life-threatening ordeal. And this planetary divide isn't just geographical, it's also cultural, biological, and magical. But autonomy's experiment didn't stop with the geography. The hemisphere facing the supergiant sun is known as Dayside. It's a vast desert, but not of yellow sand. The ground is covered in a thick layer of fine white lichen, giving the landscape its iconic appearance. The sun never moves in the sky, a constant unblinking eye that has shaped every facet of life. Because of the intense heat, most native plants and animals live beneath the surface of the sand, creating a hidden subterranean ecosystem. The people, known as the Daysiders, have pale skin and a deep-seated fear of the dark, a concept almost alien to them. They navigate using the stationary sun as a constant reference point. Their most vital resource is the dormant vine, a plant that stores huge amounts of water as a defense mechanism. To get a drink, you pour a little liquid on the sand, which draws the vine up, and then you slice off a piece. The fauna is just as specialized. Creatures called sandlings are everywhere, from small insect-like varieties to massive ones that dwell in the deep sands. Some are hunted for sport, while others, like the tonks, are domesticated as mounts. Tonks are useful, but they're also terrified of water and have this frustrating habit of burying themselves in the sand whenever they sense a storm, which they tend to mistake for even a stiff breeze. Two main nations dominate Dayside: the powerful religious nation of Kurtza and its rival, the trade-focused country of Losand. For centuries, these two have shared a border and a simmering animosity, which all comes down to their differing views on Dayside's unique and dangerous magic. Dayside's magic is called Sand Mastery, and it's one of the most visually stunning systems in the Cosmere. Practitioners known as Sand Masters can telekinetically control the white sand, shaping it into ribbons of force. A master's power is measured by how many ribbons they can control at once, so a novice might struggle with one, while the most powerful can command over 24. It can use these ribbons to create shields, launch projectiles, or even form whirlwinds to fly. But there is a cost. The magic is fueled by water, and that water is drawn directly from the Sand Master's own body. Every ribbon of sand they command brings them closer to lethal dehydration. A master is never without their Keto, a water skin, because running out of water means running out of power, and pushing too hard leads to a state called overmastery, where their powers burn out for days or even weeks. The ultimate expression of this power is overburning. In a moment of absolute desperation, a master can choose to give the sand the last of their body water and then their own life force for one final cataclysmic display of power. It's a suicide attack, but it is the ultimate sacrifice. And if that's not enough of a weakness, there's a substance called turkin, which is a natural carapace from certain creatures that is completely immune to sand mastery. Touch it with a ribbon of sand and the magic just dies. This constant threat of dehydration and the existence of a perfect counter to their power creates a tension that hangs over every sand master. But what of the other side of the world, where the sun never shines? Now, I know this is a lot to keep track of, but I also know some channels would break here for an ad, but I don't use ads or sponsors in the middle of these videos, so this channel is completely self-funded. However, I do have one thing that I think you'll like, and that's my fantasy all-access library. It's where you get all of my fantasy books that I have written, and as well as other ghostwriters that work with me in this huge shared universe where all mythologies coexist. Very familiar for Sanderson fans. This is just one book that you get. This is my version of the Sword and the Stone myth, where not everybody is that excited that this punk kid just decides he wants to be king by pulling the sword from the stone. And so you get both the ebook and the audiobook from this, plus like 20 other books, all set in this universe. So I just thought I'd show that off to you. All right, so the other half of Taldain is called the dark side. It's not pitch black though. It's illuminated by the Eye of Ritos. And since most visible light is filtered by the dust cloud, what mostly gets through is ultraviolet light. To a normal human eye, the landscape is invisible. The flora, fauna, and people of Darkside have all adapted to this UV environment. Their plants and animals often glow, and the Darksiders themselves have dark skin and traits like glowing teeth, eyes, and nails. Darkside is far more technologically advanced than Dayside. The dominant political force is an empire known as the Dynasty, ruled by a figure named Skathan. The Dynasty is so powerful, the common language of Darkside is simply called dynastic. They have developed firearms and explosives, giving them a massive military advantage over the sand-wielding Daysiders. And while a few smaller nations like the Kingdom of Ellis resist the Dynasty's expansion, its power is absolute and its agents are everywhere. Their magic is a reflection of their world. It's subtle, hidden, and deadly. And where Dayside magic is a flashy display of power, Darkside's is more subtle. It's called the Star Marks. Practitioners known as Star Carved have invested tattoos that are charged by weekly pulses of UV light and power from the Eye of Ritos. These tattoos are invisible on Dayside, and the magic they grant doesn't function there at all. This magic is far less understood than Sand Mastery, but we know that the Star Carved can use their marks to create things like razor-sharp blades from their skin or shields strong enough to stop bullets. The effects are not nearly as noticeable as hurling rivers of sand, but they are just as lethal. So we have two separate worlds, two magic systems, both on one planet. They seem completely different, but they both originate from the same source, the manipulative god who built this entire system as a grand, cruel experiment. The architect of Taldain is the Shard of Aldanosium known as Autonomy, whose vessel is a woman named Bavadine. Her entire philosophy is built on the idea of strength through struggle. She believes that true potential is only realized through extreme adversity, so she engineers that adversity herself. She creates Taldain's impossible orbit and its opposing cultures as a petri dish. She doesn't just act from afar. Bavadine is a master of creating avatars, sentient pieces of herself that can act independent. On Dayside, her most prominent avatar is the Sand Lord, the deity worshipped in Kurtzta. Kurtzian religion teaches that the sun is the Sand Lord's eye and the sand is his body, which makes sand mastery a vile heresy. According to legend, Autonomy herself, as the Sand Lord, appeared to the founders of both Kurtzta and Losand. She gave one the gift of sand mastery and told the other it was a curse, engineering centuries of conflict from the very beginning. She also gifted Taldain with advanced scientific knowledge, making it one of the most technologically advanced planets in the Cosmere for a time. But this gift came with strings. She refuses to let their technology progress beyond a certain point, and it's what some have called corporate uniqueness, the illusion of freedom and individuality, but only within the rigid confines she dictates. Everyone gets to be their own person as long as it fits her plan. At some point, she took this control to the extreme. Autonomy sealed Taldain off from the rest of the Cosmere, locking its portal to the cognitive realm and trapping its world hoppers like the famous scholar Chris in exile. She built the planet, defined its rules, and then locked the doors. This grand experiment came to a head in the story told in the White Sand graphic novels. The narrative follows the DM, the ancient order of Sandmasters based in Losand, and believing the Sandmasters to be heretical, the warrior priests of Kurtzta, likely with a quiet push from an Autonomy, launch a surprise attack and massacre almost the entire order. The protagonist, Kenton, is one of the very few survivors, and he's considered the weakest Sandmaster of his generation, able to control only a single ribbon of sand. Yet what he lacks in raw power, he makes up for in skill and sheer stubbornness. In the aftermath of the attack, he becomes the de facto leader of the Shattered DM and must convince the ruling council of Losand not to dissolve the order for good. Into this chaos walks Chrysala, a duchess from Darkside, supposedly searching for sand mastery to avenge a loved one. But Chris is more than she seems. She is one of the most important scholars in the entire Cosmere, secretly studying the fundamental laws of magic. Accompanied by her deadly bodyguard Bayon, who is himself an agent of the Dynasty, she finds herself allied with Kenton. The whole crisis is essentially Autonomy's final exam. She engineered a catastrophe to see if the Sandmasters, cornered and nearly extinct, had the strength and autonomy to survive. It's the ultimate test test of her philosophy played out with the real lives on a world she built for that exact purpose. The Cosmere is a huge place, but if you're looking for another universe to dive into, I'd love for you to check out my own. Everything I do on this channel is funded by my readers through my community on School. When you join, you get my entire library of fantasy books, including all future ebooks and audiobooks, and we release at least one new book per month, sometimes more. You also get access to our community and weekly live calls with me where we talk about writing, mythology, and all things nerdy. So if you're looking for a new world of epic stories and want to support the channel, joining the library is the best way to do it. The link is in the description, and I will see you in the next video.